learn Japanese history.
We are your navigators, Taro and Hanako.
Now, if you're just starting to get into Japan's history, maybe as university students joining us from overseas, understanding the huge changes in the Meiji era is really, really important.
Yeah, it really sets the stage for everything that follows.
Exactly. And today we're going to do a deep dive into some pretty significant social issues that popped up while Japan was industrializing, well, incredibly quickly.
It's the speed that's just astonishing, isn't it? The government was pushing hard, bringing in Western tech, Western systems.
And the whole country changed, like almost overnight in historical terms.
But that kind of speed, well, it creates problems, big imbalances.
Right, so it wasn't smooth sailing for everybody. You had these massive corporations booming, but then loads of smaller businesses were really struggling.
Precisely, and that gap was huge. Plus, for ordinary people, the workers' conditions were often really poor.
And they didn't have much money to spend either, did they? So domestic consumption stayed pretty low, I gather.
That's right. It held things back in some ways. Now, as all these factories sprang up, they needed workers. Lots of them.
Where did they all come from?
Many were second or third sons, daughters too, from farming families that were, finding it tough economically.
So moving to the city, working in a factory, that was a way out, or at least a way to help the family back home.
It was certainly an option, maybe the only one for some, but the reality inside those factories.
It was harsh, very harsh compared to today, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Long, long hours, low pay, often quite dangerous work environments. It was just the norm back then.
That sounds incredibly tough. It makes sense that people would start to get unhappy, maybe start thinking about, doing something about it.
Exactly. Dissatisfaction grew. And as more people shared these experiences, a collective awareness started to build. People realized they weren't alone in this.
Which logically leads to trying to organize, right?
Precisely. And this is where we see the beginnings of the labor movement really taking shape.
Ah, yes. Tell us about that. I know there were some key figures involved.
Right. In 1897, that's Meiji 30, you have Takano Fusataro and Kanayama Sen. Now, they'd actually been in the U.S., seen how labor unions work there.
Oh, interesting. So they brought back ideas?
They did. They founded the Labor Union Promoters Association. The goal was pretty clear. Get workers to band together, solidarity, to push for better conditions.
That must have been quite radical at the time.
It really was. It's seen as the real start of organized labor in Japan. And unsurprisingly, as the movement grew, you started seeing more labor disputes, strikes, protests.
Workers finding their voice, demanding better treatment. How did the government react to all this? I can't imagine they were thrilled.
No, they weren't. Their main focus was stability and pushing industrialization forward. So in 1900, Meiji 33, the second Yamagata cabinet brought in the Peace Preservation Police Law.
Peace preservation. Sounds okay, but I suspect the name is a bit misleading.
Very misleading. It wasn't about general peace. It was specifically aimed at cracking down on the labor movement. It essentially made it illegal to organize strikes or instigate disputes.
Wow, okay, so direct suppression. They wanted order above all else.
That seems to be the priority. National strength, industrial progress, even if it meant curbing workers' rights to organize. It really set a pattern, this tension between state goals and, well, individual or group rights.
A pattern we see again later, I suppose.
Definitely. But the factories weren't the only places feeling the strain. Rapid industrial growth also hit the environment hard.
You must be talking about the Ashio copper mine incident. That's a really famous and tragic example.
It is. The mine itself in Tochigi Prefecture wasn't new. It had been around since the Edo period.
But something changed in the Meiji era.
Yes. Furukawa Ichibei took over operations early in the Meiji period. He invested heavily in the latest Western mining technology.
And production went up?
Dramatically. Copper output soared. But the downside was enormous.
The pollution.
Exactly. A massive amount of mining toxins, poisonous stuff, just flowed straight out of the Hine and into the nearby Wadarass River.
Oh, no. And rivers flood. They carry things downstream.
Precisely. Repeated floods spread these toxins across huge areas of farmland. Crops died. The water was contaminated. People got sick. It was devastating for the local communities.
Just awful. Did anyone try to fight back against this?
Yes. This is where Tanaka Shozo comes in. He was a Diet member, actually, from that affected region.
So he represented the people suffering from this.
He did. And he became their champion. He petitioned the government again and again, demanding action.
What was he asking for specifically?
Basically 3 things. Stop the pollution, shut down the mine operations if necessary, and provide relief help for the residents whose lives had been ruined.
Did the government listen?
Well, they told the mine operators to implement some preventative measures.
Yeah.
But honestly, they were mostly ineffective. The pollution didn't really stop.
So the damage just continued.
It did. And it grew into this huge social problem, a real scandal. It showed the dark side of that rapid industrial push.
It really highlights the costs, doesn't it? Not just worker exploitation, but environmental destruction, too.
And alongside all this, you also had other ideas bubbling up, different ways of thinking about society.
You mean like socialism?
Exactly. Socialist movements started to emerge around the same time as the labor movements. People were questioning the whole system.
Who are the main figures there?
Well, in 1901, Meiji 34, you had figures like Abisu Kotoku Shusui. They formed the Social Democratic Party. It was actually Japan's first party with an openly socialist platform.
The first one. How long did that last, given the government's reaction to the unions?
You guessed it. Not long at all. It was banned almost immediately.
Under which law? Let me guess.
The Peace Preservation Police law, again, yes. It was a very effective tool for suppressing dissent.
But banning the party didn't just make the ideas disappear, surely.
Not at all. In 1903, Meiji 36, Kotoku Shusui, along with Sakai Toshihiko, founded a group called the Haminsha. That means the Common People Society.
Okay. And what did they do?
They published a weekly newspaper, the Haimen Shinbun. And it became quite famous, partly because it took a strong stance against the Russo-Japanese War.
Opposing the war effort, that would have been controversial.
Extremely. After the war, the Japan Socialist Party was formed, but it quickly ran into internal disagreements.
Oh, what kind of disagreements?
Basically, how to achieve their goals. There was a moderate wing thinking they could work through parliament, through elections and politics.
Right, the parliamentary route.
And then there was a more radical faction. They believed in direct action strikes, protests by the workers themselves. They felt the political system wouldn't deliver real change.
Ah, the classic split between reform and revolution, in a sense.
Sort of, yes.
Yeah.
But things took a much darker turn.
What happened?
In 1910, Meiji 43, came the high treason incident. Kaitoku Shusui, the same guy from the Haimincha, and several others were arrested.
High treason. What were they accused of?
Allegedly plotting to assassinate the Emperor Meiji.
Wow. That's incredibly serious. Was there proof?
It's highly debated by historians, but the outcome was swift and brutal. Kaitoku and others were executed.
Executed. Goodness.
Yeah. And this incident basically gave the government the justification it needed or wanted to really clamp down hard on all socialist activity.
So it wasn't just about punishing those individuals.
No, it sent a chilling message. It ushered in what historians often call the winter period for socialists in Japan, severe repression.
And I read somewhere that this was when a special police force was set up.
That's right. The Special Hire Police, the TOCO. It was established within the Tokyo Metropolitan Police specifically for ideological surveillance, watching socialists, anarchists, anyone considered subversive.
So intense suppression. But was that the only government response? Did they try anything else to maybe ease the tensions?
Well, yes, there were some attempts to address the causes of the unrest, not just suppress the symptoms. They did recognize, maybe reluctantly, that there was a conflict brewing between capital and labor that needed some management.
Okay, so what did they do?
This led to the factory law, passed in 1911, Meiji 44. It was Japan's first ever law aimed at protecting workers, though it didn't actually come into force until 1916 in the Taisho era.
The first labor protection law? What did it cover? Did it help much?
It set some basic standards. For instance, it limited working hours for boys under 15 and for women.
To what?
To 12 hours a day. And it prohibited them from working through the night, general.
12 hours. Still sounds like a lot, but I guess it was better than nothing.
It was a start. But, and this is a big but, the law had major
Oh,
limitations.
such as?
Well, for one, it only applied to factories that employed 15 or more people.
Ah, so all the smaller workshops, which were probably numerous, were completely excluded.
Exactly. A huge chunk of the workforce got no protection at all. And even in the factories it did cover, there were exceptions.
Like what?
For example, in the silk reeling industry, which was vital for exports, they were allowed to keep women working for up to 14 hours a day.
14 hours.
And in the spinning industry, another key sector, nighttime work was still permitted for a transitional period. So it was a very cautious first step. Symbolic, perhaps, but limited in practical effect for many.
It really shows that balancing act, doesn't it? Trying to look like they're addressing the problem, but not wanting to hurt industrial output.
Absolutely. The priority was still very much on economic growth and national strength. Worker welfare was secondary, though acknowledged as an issue for the first time in law.
So looking back at this whole period, it's just incredibly complex. You've got this amazing burst of energy, industrialization, modernization.
Yeah, a huge transformation. Japan really changed its place in the world.
But underneath that, you have these deep social fissures opening up. Poor conditions for workers, environmental disasters like Ashio,
The rise of new ideas like labor unions and socialism trying to challenge the status quo.
and then the government pushing back, trying to control dissent, while also maybe making some small concessions like the factory law.
It's a period full of tension, full of conflict. And these struggles, these debates from the Meiji era, they didn't just disappear. They really shaped what came next.
They laid the groundwork for future social movements, political debates, even government policy for decades to come. Understanding this period is so crucial.
Absolutely.
So, for everyone listening, as you delve deeper into Japanese history, here's something to think about. We've talked about the tension between rapid economic growth and social well-being in Meiji Japan. How does that resonate with you? Do you see parallels with other countries, maybe your own, or other historical periods going through similar rapid changes?
Yeah, are there lessons we can draw from Meiji Japan's experience that are still relevant today, as societies everywhere grapple with development, inequality, and environmental costs?
Lots to consider. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.